Sincere apologies for our inability to bring public conscience last week, but we are here today and we are back and better. Hello and welcome to Public Conscience, the anti-corruption program produced by the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, PRIMOG. I am Chidozie Ogbonnaya, along with Adaobi Obiabumo.
Thank you for joining us.
On Public Conscience, we seek to evolve a corruption-free society by drawing government and citizens' attention to corruption reports and issues for prompt democratic actions against them. We also promote integrity by amplifying rare cases of the display of honesty by public and private individuals. We appreciate the MacArthur Foundation for supporting the production of this program.
In today's program, the focus is on the delivery of public infrastructural projects in the Federal Capital Territory FCT and the challenges of corruption in contracting, transparency and accountability by the administrators. We will also find out how persons with disability are impacted by infrastructural development within and around the nation's capital.
Provision of public infrastructures like roads, schools, hospitals, bridges are very essential in the development of any country, state or city. The presence of infrastructure is the distinction between underdeveloped, developing, and developed countries. Recently, the spotlight has been on the FCT with the appointment of former Rivers State Governor Nyesom Wike as Minister of the FCT, and following his quest to improve public infrastructure.
The minister, in one of his visits to project sites in the FCT, condemned the abuse of contract variation in the territory and pointed out the specific case of the Ushafa Buhari Road contract, which varied from 50 billion naira to 200 billion naira. This development continues to be a serious public concern, with many worried that the deterring pace of infrastructural development in the FCT is most likely occasioned by contracting corruption, among other issues.
Today's program will examine the challenges before the Federal Capital Territory Administration in delivering infrastructural projects and what must be done to curb corruption, lack of transparency, and accountability in service delivery. For you out there, what has been your assessment of infrastructural development in the FCT? Are you satisfied with the pace? When you look at public projects in the FCT, do you see value for money spent? How much do you think corruption is affecting infrastructural development in the FCT? And how can the current administration address the challenges of contract fraud going forward? And do you think there is anything citizens can do to help the situation?
Be ready to join us through phone and text messages during this conversation. The WhatsApp phone line to send your message to is 0902 265 6167. That is 0902 265 6167. Please indicate your name and your location when sending your message. This number is for messages only.
Please begin to send your messages as soon as possible to 090 2265 6167. And that is 090 2265 6167. We will give out the numbers to call shortly.
If you just joined us, our focus is on the challenges of infrastructural development in the Federal Capital Territory FCT and the need to clamp down on activities that tend to undermine integrity of contract award and execution of projects in the nation's capital. One of those activities is contract variation, which the Minister of FCT recently spoke against and vowed to stop. We must mention that we invited the Honorable Minister of the Federal Capital Territory to the program. We are hopeful that he would send a representative to join us.
We will be joined by a member of the Community of Persons with Disabilities to tell us how they are impacted by the state of public infrastructure and corruption in the FCT. But joining us via the phone right about now is Dr. Abaji Orinya, Program Manager, Priest, Peace and Justice Initiative. Many thanks for joining us. It's good to have you here. And let's get to it because a lot has been happening in FCT, and so we are focusing on infrastructural development. Let's have your assessment of infrastructural development in the FCT so far. What is your take?
Okay, thank you very much for having me. Of course, one of the key things you find, especially within the terms of infrastructure, is you see pockets of abandoned projects. Either the projects are abandoned or it takes a long period before the projects are completed. Uh, but generally, infrastructural speaking, the FCT is not really, if you want to compare it with developed cities across the world, I don't think we can say that in terms of infrastructure is anywhere close to such measure. But one of the things, like I said, the problem of abandoned projects here and there in almost all the development areas across here.
As you said, abandoned projects never good for the people, because when a project is abandoned, it's the people's resources that are tied down and wasting. Well, let's get straight into other things concerning projects in the FCT. How much is corruption affecting the judicious use of public funds in infrastructure infrastructural development of the FCT?
Thank you very much for that question. Uh, you agree with me that Nigeria is faced with a lot of issues around corruption, and there have been several efforts to combat issues of corruption. But clearly, the problem of lack of transparency, especially in the contracting in Nigeria, is a big problem. Of course, you look at it from the eyes of maybe the citizens, you see that the due processes are followed on paper and when the media is available. But deep down, there's no transparency in the entire contracting process, because we still have issues of writing, issues of feedback that are actually still pervasive in contracting process. And this lack of transparency in the contracting process creates opportunities for corruption to thrive. And then there's also influence, political influence. People who are politically connected, they often exert on influence on the awarding of contracts. And it becomes very difficult for you to hold this kind of people to account. And then, talk about embezzlement and misappropriation and inflation of inflated contract sums. So these are the things that have disabled the contracting processes in Nigeria, including poor policy and abandoned projects, like I said earlier. Right? So if there is corruption in the contracting process, you find that there is poor policy. Because by the time you give 50% of the contract sum as feedback, what do you have left to execute the project? So we need to substandard infrastructure. For this morning, I was just going to and I was just complaining about a particular road that was constructed just recently. It's not even up to a year. And already there is a very big pothole that is on the, and nobody is going to ask.
Where in particular do you have this road?
The road from the area 1 bridge that was constructed towards Japan, around the area 1 motor park. You find the road is beginning to have potholes. The road is not even up to a year. So we need more quality projects. So these are some of the areas that how corruption has actually disabled the contracting process, especially in the
Okay, thank you so much, Doctor, for having highlighted some of the issues, talking about lack of transparency, political influence, and how they affect projects. Recently, we know that the FCT minister exposed 50 billion naira to 200 billion naira contract variation in the FCT. What is your take on this development?
Okay, I think we lost Dr. Abaji Orinya, but we'll try and reconnect with him to give his take. Network might have played the first one on us there.
Okay, for those who are still hooked onto the program, we are looking at contract variations in the FCT with a backdrop of the.
All right, we have Dr. Abaji Orinya back online.
Okay, thank you, Doctor. Can you hear me?
Yes, I can hear you.
Okay, I just appreciated you for the issues that you raised, talking about lack of transparency and political influence and how they affect contracts and projects in the FCT. But recently, the minister exposed 50 billion naira to 200 billion naira contract variation in the FCT. What is your take on this?
Well, the question I have is we have a procurement process. Alright, you have a procurement process where you have to identify projects, plan budget, the process of approval and funding, tendering and procurement, the evaluation. I mean, I just the answer is the question. Are we following the minister following this process? Alright, this is where I have it's a very sensitive issue, and I wouldn't want to make too many comments on it. But the question is it following this process? These contracts, are they being awarded? Are they following the processes that have been stipulated by law? Is it acting within the law? Alright, so this is, I wouldn't want to make so many comments around this.
Okay, but what do you think the current administration can do to reduce corruption in contract awards?
Yeah, it's not about transparency. It's about transparency and accountability. They should get the citizens should be involved. They should know what projects have been approved for a particular place and how much has been approved for that particular project. You know, you just see roads being constructed. You don't know where it's coming from. People will just assume, maybe because maybe the council someone must have influenced this particular project. But we don't know how much. We don't know what quality the contractor was supposed to deliver. So the citizens need to get involved. They need to know, and they need to hold this as accountable. They need to understand the nature of each contract, the nature of each project that is to be executed within the environment, so that we can ask questions. How was this money spent? But nobody is asking questions.
Okay.
Right? So we must engage the citizens, there must be transparency and accountability in the procurement process and in the bidding process. Of course, we have these documents on paper. Alright?
Okay.
But are they following the government following this process?
Okay.
What extent are they implementing the procurement process? Thank you.
Okay, brilliant suggestions there. But we know that since the current FCT minister took charge, got into office, we've seen that there's this new energy. There is this push to curb corruption in the system. If you are to advise the minister on sustaining these efforts to curb corruption, what must he do?
Thank you very much. The minister must put systems in place that will make corruptible transactions difficult. That is the first thing. That's the first thing to do. You must put systems in place to ensure checks and balances. Alright? You must let the people within the entity be involved in the project. Let them have this information. There should be a portal where people should go and verify what project is supposed to be implemented or executed in a particular area. How much is this project? Who is the contractor? What is the description of work that is supposed to deliver?
Okay.
Right? So the citizens should be involved. Should put systems in place that will ensure that corruption transactions are difficult. There should be proper monitoring and evaluation mechanisms that will go and also hold these deliver exactly what they said they are going to deliver. And so citizens engagement is also key, and then the monitoring and evaluation.
I agree with you. Citizens' engagement cannot be overemphasized. Dr. Abaji Orinya is the program manager at Priest Peace and Justice Initiative. Many thanks for joining us. If you just joined us, it is still Public Conscience, a production of the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, Primorg. And we've been talking about infrastructure development in FCT and the challenges of corruption. We just spoke to Dr. Abaji Orinya, Program Manager at Priest Peace and Justice Initiative, and he gave a lot of thoughts on that. What is your take, Adabi?
I agree with his submission talking about the influence of political influence over some of these contracts that have been awarded to contractors, and he also talked about citizens' engagement, monitoring and evaluation. How much are we aware of projects that have been awarded in the FCT? Do we follow the contract awards? Did it follow due process? If there are breaches here and there, what should happen? Who should be held responsible? Is it the contractor who has not completed the projects that have been awarded to him? Or are there other underlying factors that the contractor would not willingly come on air to talk about? Who is the contractor speaking to? What are those issues preventing them from completing this project?
The long and short of this all is about transparency, accountability, and public getting involved in knowing, in being interested in the conversation going on to say, look at what we want and this is what we must get. But we also been joined by a human rights lawyer who will speak for the community of persons with disability. Mary Musa, thank you so much for joining us.
Thank you so much for having me.
The issues of FCT concerns all of us and equally the PWD community. So give us a sense of how the PWD community is coping with the infrastructural gap in the FCT.
Oh, well, you know that when you talk about, most times, when you talk about the poorest of the poor, they unfortunately reside among, the disability community, persons with disabilities. If you go to the colony in Karamajigi, for instance, you go there and you see things that you couldn't even imagine. You understand? And this is to say that if we are demolishing, for instance, the people that are mostly going to be affected, by this demolition would be persons with disabilities. And when they are rendered homeless, it constitutes what? Nuisance. Because you see them roaming around the streets because they can't provide, they can't have adequate shelter, they can't provide for their families. And what we've been trying to avoid, which is, increased begging and, littering of persons with disabilities on the street, it might just return because their homes are being rendered, useless. So it has a great impact on the disability community, the demolitions that is going on. And I'm just hoping that, as the demolitions are going on and then new structures are being developed, that persons with disabilities are considered also.
Was there, sorry to butt in here, Mary, was there an engagement with the persons with disability before the demolition? Were there prior notice?
No, not to my knowledge. No, not to my knowledge.
And have the community been contacted?
The community has not been contacted, but the community has reached out to the government, to several, government agencies, to ensure that they are being considered, to ensure that, the government just thinks about them or at least provide palliatives, for us as the demolitions are going on. But to the best of my knowledge, they were not contacted.
In specific terms, Which part of the government did you approach? The FCTA, the local, the area council? Which one? Tell us.
I know that letters were written to FCT, but then we haven't gotten any response yet. We are not even sure if those letters have been attended, to if they've been seen by the people that we are addressed to. But I'm certain that a letter was sent to FCT regarding this.
Okay, Mary, it's good to know that the letter has been sent, and we are hopeful that the authorities would attend to the letter. But moving forward, how accessible are public buildings and facilities in the FCT for persons with disabilities?
Oh yes, I was coming to that. When we talk about accessibility of infrastructure for persons with disabilities, we have a Disability Act that enables that. The mandate of the Disability Act is to ensure that persons with disabilities live normal life on an equal basis with others. And what does Part 2 of that Act provide? Part 2 of that Act says that there has to be accessible infrastructure. Public buildings and the physical environment must be accessible to persons with disabilities. And this just means that for as long as that building is a public facility, the person with disabilities should have no hindrances, no obstacles, no obstructions accessing it, whether the person is on a wheelchair or whether the person is holding a white cane, or whatever disability the person has, because I keep saying that the disability community is not a homogeneous community, so there are different clusters. But then accessibility means that every cluster must be embraced and considered while they're developing this. For instance, as these demolitions and new structures are being done, we are hoping that at least roadside walks should be accessible to people on wheelchairs. Even the blind, the visually impaired should be able to access roadside walks unaided. That's the primary thing. It has to be unaided. We don't always have to need to go with somebody. Even pedestrian bridges must be accessible to persons with disabilities. Ramps, we must have ramps so that people on wheelchairs, for instance, can access unaided. We must have signs or, whatever that would make it accessible for those who have visual impairments and are going to be using their canes. That's what the law says.
Mary,
the law also provides.
Sorry,
Yeah?
Mary, I know that the Disability Act didn't come on board today. So, for the time being, since it has been in existence, what is the level of compliance? What can you say if you are to rate the level of compliance? What will you be? 10 over 10? 5 over 10?
You and I can be the judge of that. How many bridges in Abuja can you access if you were on a wheelchair? Truthfully. How many roadside walks in Abuja can you access if you closed your eyes and went out with a cane? Could you access the road unaided? So, everybody can give the score. It's an open marking. It's an open marking system. You and I can be the judge of it. How many buildings are accessible on their own? Even government buildings, how many of them are accessible on their own to wheelchairs? How many of them have lifts? And even those that have lifts, how many of the lifts are accessible to people with visual impairment? Because the law says that there has to be some braille signages or audio description or audio that just enables persons who have a visual impairment to be able to operate these elevators and lifts unaided. How many of them do we have?
Okay, Mary, you've highlighted quite some issues there. But what more do you think the FCT administration can do for the community of persons with disability?
The FCT administration can simply, in very simple terms, make the FCT as beautiful as they intend it to be accessible for persons with disabilities. How? By making sure that every cluster of disability is incorporated in their building plans For instance, the Disability Act says that no building should be approved, by a public, a government authority if the building does not comply with the building code and does not comply with accessibility features. And then it even went on to say that should they approve it, should an officer approve such a building that doesn't provide for accessibility, that officer must be fined a fine of 1 million naira or 2 years imprisonment.
Okay.
The law also says that if a person with disability should meet any kind of obstruction, and then report to the appropriate authority that, see, I wanted to access this building, but it wasn't accessible to me. And then the officer refuses to do something. For every day of that default, the person is liable to a fine of 5,000 or 10,000 in damages to the person with disability.
Okay.
Or a fine of 6 months imprisonment, or both. And then the law went on to say that, okay, because we understand that FCT has been around for a while and the Disability Act is enacted in 2019, we are going to give Abuja and the rest of Nigeria 5 years transition. So that from that 2019 January 23rd to 2024 January 22nd or 23rd, however you want to interpret it, every public building must be modified.
Okay.
Road systems, pedestrian bridges, everything that is public, the environment must be modified
Okay.
in a way that it will accommodate persons with disabilities. How much of this has been implemented?
Okay,
You
so-
and I will be sure of that.
Mary, we'll have to look forward to that 2024. I don't know how optimistic, how realistic it will be, but we'll have to keep our fingers crossed and keep this conversation going on because we can't just keep quiet. Lastly, for 30 seconds, just give me your take on this. The FCT minister is doing a lot, as we see, and he also plans to fight corruption in different ways. What do you think? How can he maintain the momentum, sustain the momentum going forward? In 30 seconds, please.
Oh well, yeah, he's doing a lot, and we know that his vision for Abuja is, and I mean, coming from, if you look at his precedents from River Smith, we know, what he did with regards to the physical environment of River. So we're very optimistic, and we know for sure that he has good intentions. But we just want him not to give up, but then especially to consider persons with disability as the demolition is going on and as new structures are coming up.
Okay, thank you so much, human rights lawyer Mary Musa, who also spoke for the community of persons with disability. Thank you so much for joining us this morning.
Thank you for having me. Thank you.
All right, and if you just joined us, this is still Public Conscience, a production of the Progressive Impact Organization for Community Development, PRIMOG. I am not alone. I'm still with my colleague, Ada Obiobiabomo, and this is Public Conscience.
There's a lot of issues have been raised, starting from our first guest, Dr. Agbaji, and then Mary Musa, the lawyer who also spoke for the community of persons with disability. Truly, Dozie, how accessible would you say the infrastructure in the FCT is to the persons with disability? Talking about the bridges.
I couldn't argue with her on that.
So these are some of the things that the FCT minister may want to consider as he's working on some of the projects, abandoned projects, if I would add that to it, to ensure that the roads are accessible, not just persons who can easily walk around, but particularly for those who are blind. They need to be factored in all of the developmental projects going forward. But I think it's time to bring the listener to join the conversation.
Absolutely. So we want you to contribute and tell us how you feel. What do you, when you see projects in FCT, what do you see? You can join us with your opinion and your contribution. What has been your assessment of infrastructural development in the FCT? Are you satisfied with the pace of development? But when you look at projects, public projects in the FCT, do you see value for money spent? How much do you think corruption is affecting infrastructural development in the FCT? And how can the current FCT administration address challenges of contract fraud? Is a big problem. For you as a citizen, how can you be of help?
While the earlier guest, Dr. Agbaji, was speaking, he did mention the road, the area 1 road.
Are you conversant with that road?
There are lots of abandoned projects or projects that were shabbily executed in the FCT. You're a resident of the FCT. Are there roads that you want to draw the government's attention to? Please join us. You asked me if I'm familiar with some of the roads. Definitely I'm familiar with that road. If you get to Durumi, there are lots of, I don't even know, federal government presence there. The roads are bad. You want to wonder if Durumi is in the FCT. You get to Piakasa, that is another bad road. Remember the Apo Karishi road? That road has been under construction for ages. From the former minister, Senator Bala Mohammed, to Mohammed Musa Bello, and now we have Nyesom Wike.
So he has his job cut out.
Lots of road. You get to Peggy, the 14.7 kilometer Peggy Dafara road, which was awarded in 2011. To date, we are still talking about that road.
A whole lot, but the people need infrastructure. Whenever I get to hear about abandoned project, the one thing that comes to mind is this is our money wasting. This is our money wasting. Like the Peggy Road, the 14 kilometer Peggy Dafara Road. I don't know why that we will still be mentioning that road.
To think that that road was awarded at 676 million naira as far back as 2011. Only God knows how much that road would be now, since the road is still not complete.
And that is where the conversation of variation come into place, because if you abandon a road this long, if you are returning them to site, definitely,
of course, there will be inflation.
Definitely, the materials have gone up, inflation taking over a lot of things, so you expect what you are getting. And the challenge is that let the stakeholders of that project not seize the opportunity to also impugn or fraudulently jack up the money, jack up the price. So we are having overpriced projects in our system. It will never take us to anywhere.
Dr. Abaji talked about citizens' engagement.
Hello. Your name and where you're calling from?
My name is Samuel Aris. I'm calling from Lokogoma.
All right, let's hear you from Lokogoma. When you look at public projects in FCT, do you see value for money? And how can we chase out corruption affecting infrastructural development in the FCT?
Well, I thank God for the return of TCFL. Then, this Apo Karishi Road, I have been in Apo settlement in 2007. You understand? So, that particular road, I have entered transport down to the end of that road from Wasan. Then I also tried to enter from through Karishi, you understand, because it's my axis. So that road, they have awarded that road for many years, and we don't know about that money. The problem in this country is corruption.
But have you tried to find out?
The problem is that who are you going to ask? Who is going to give you the information? They can know that they have awarded that road during the time of Goodluck Jonathan.
Okay.
You understand? Because then I have a car wash in Katsina Junction. That in that Apo axis, after Shoprite, I had a big car wash that time.
Okay.
That one. They demolished that place because they want to do the road. Then I was happy that they want to do road. But now, up to now, my car wash they have demolished my business, and the road is not. They did not do the road. You understand? The issue that the one thing with the Nigerian corruption is that they will even frustrate the masses, and they will collect the money, they will see the one, and nothing will be done.
You live in. Let me ask you. You live in Karishi. You do your business in Karishi, right?
No, Kabusa Junction.
Yes.
After Shoprite.
Fine. Do you also know that there's a councillor that is representing that area that you are doing that business? Before we even talk about area council chairman, how much do you interface or interact? Do you even know the person?
I don't know the councillor. I don't know the councillor, Sha.
Okay. I'm just mentioning it so that you know that you also have a responsibility to be interested. But I like the fact that you are interested, that you even called on radio.
The problem with our leaders is that even I campaign for many of them, but imagine they don't answer that call. People see them is a problem.
Okay.
You cannot go back to their gate.
Okay.
Except they are a big man. You understand?
All right.
They will just shut that door for you to come and interact with them.
All right. Let's try and engage other people. But thank you for your intervention. Where are you calling from?
My name is I'm calling from Peggy.
Oh, from Peggy, Chibike Jeffo.
Yes.
Thank you for that.
Okay, how is Peggy Road this morning?
It's terrible.
Okay, go ahead with your contribution.
I've heard you mention the road several times. That means you are aware of it.
Yes, we are aware of Peggy Road. So,
the saddest thing about this road is even the small stretch that leads from Kuje to Peggy, a small stretch. In fact, most of the kidnapping you've been hearing around there lately take place within this small stretch. And the ability of the government to just come and do whatever, call it privately. Just let this road, because if you see this slow speed at which motorists move there even in the night, which is an incentive for kidnappers anyway, because that's what the police is always to pick people up within that small stretch. So one can't just understand. We have gone from complaining to demonstration, and I think we don't know what else to do.
Chibike, let me jump in here. Sorry to jump in. I know we have a new FCT minister. The Peggy community, is there anything going on? Is there any plan to also lodge an official complaint to the minister?
Yes, even in our last meeting last month, that matter was raised. We are trying to, the area council chairman is not unaware of it. But since this new minister is here, who appears to be more serious than the previous ones, so the talk is on. But in this program, I really think it would be better if you try to invite a senior FCT officer with you. You will take up this matter and present it to the minister.
Actually, we did that, and we don't have the person we invited. We invited the FCT administration, which the minister is part of, and we don't have the representative. But we'll keep talking about it. Our hearts are with Peggy people.
It's a popular program on a popular radio. So it's a good medium to push these talks.
All right. Thank you for joining us with the development in Peggy. We can only wish Peggy all the best.
We can still take one of.
That is good from wishing us all the best to helping us to sound the matter loudly.
All right. Thank you. Let's take one more call before we start wrapping up things. Hello.
Hello.
Your name and where you're calling from?
Yes, and this is George from Dubai.
Okay, Mrs. George, what's your take on the conversation?
Yes, I just want to comment on the first part of the conversation, which I was not able to do right now. The FCT minister has actually created more problems than we had when we were before he came. Now, there's this new issue now of kidnapping. I learned that 5,000 motorcycles were
demolished were crushed to ashes by this new minister. And you know the result is effect. Just last week, one of our directors was kidnapped in his house, and 19 people were kidnapped in Buhari or wherever. And kidnapping now is on the increase that you cannot even close your eyes.
So you are linking sanity of the city,
yes,
cleaning up of the city with insecurity.
It is the welfare of the people when they are enjoying life. These people are poor. The only means of survival is this motorcycle. What you could have done was to confiscate those motorcycles and ask them to bring some money to come and redeem them.
Okay.
I know they will not come back again. At least they can sell the motorcycles and get something. I'm talking about poor people.
But that is not an excuse why someone should go into
kidnapping. It's not for infrastructure or for clearing something. When people are suffering, just imagine rendering 5,000 people off work. What will they do? They will start killing and they will not come to him. They will not come to his children abroad.
But other businesses that they can do.
Poor people that will be affected by this abnormality. How can you take 5,000 motorcycles of poor people? Do you know how much to get a motorcycle and crush it in front of them? These people are now furious with anger and they are devouring us. We the poor people, civil servants, they come around and now where the Obama they kidnap a woman where they have never been before. Kidnapping is now going around in FCT.
Okay, we have to leave it there, but
and then imagine the palliative they are given. Who are they giving palliative to? Nobody in FCT. They're not saying anything.
Our phone lines are buzzing. We want to take other call, at least one before we wrap up. Thank you.
Let us tell the government the truth because the poor people are suffering.
Thank you for your take there. Can we take this last one?
Yes, please.
Yes.
Your name and where you're calling us from?
Okay, my name is Mr. George.
George from where? Okay, let's hear you in 1 minute.
Yes, in relation to this infrastructure issue in Abuja, actually the satellite camps, when you look at Dusi, Alaji, they have no roads. The roads are bad. We would like this minister will dwell more on rapid development of roads in the satellite, and that will help in decongesting the main tank. Previous administration is think more on the main tank. They should decongest the main tank by developing the satellite tank. That will help. It will help in liberating the suffering of people. Most of the time, most people will not even want to go to the central town when the other satellite town are well developed. When the issue that woman raised about that cyclists that were demolished, it is very unfair, sir.
All right.
My sister said they can go to other business. Where is the money? If you release the bike to them, some of them will sell it and raise money to start some other small things. Unemployment is one of the causes. It's a major cause of insecurity and criminality.
All right.
Which is a fact. Yeah.
All right.
Thank you for your program.
Yes,
thank you so
friend,
much.
I must thank you for that contribution, but time is no longer our friend. Time is no longer our friend, so we have to start wrapping up things from this part of the studio.
Please visit our news website, primognews.org. That is primognews.org. For all the details of our reports and interviews, visit our website, www.primog.org, to get all the information about Primog.
And you can watch our videos on Primog TV, our YouTube channel. Please subscribe to get reminders when we have a new post. We appreciate our guest, Dr. Abaji Orinya, who is the program manager, Priests, Peace and Justice Initiative. We also thank a human rights lawyer, Mary Musa, who spoke for the community of persons with disability. Thank you all for joining us today in this program. Public Conscience has the support of the John D. and Catherine T. MacArthur Foundation, committed to building a more just, verdant, and peaceful world. Get more information about the foundation on its website, macfound.org.
I must mention again that we invited the Minister of FCT, but unfortunately we were not joined by any representative. Join us again here next week for another episode of Public Conscience, and remember to follow us on Facebook, Twitter, which is the same as X, and Instagram @officialprimog. I am Adaobi. Obiabumo.
And remember that birth registration and birth certificate are free if your child is under 18. Help stop the corruption in birth registration and do not pay for birth certificates. Also remember that you can give us information or hints about corrupt acts through our phone at 09022656167 or info@primorg.org. I am Chidozie Obonaya. Stay safe.